I'm not sure why I've never seen Freebirds before, because I love animations, and the cast for this is pretty great, namely Owen Wilson, Amy Poehler, and Woody Harrelson. But nevertheless, I finally took the time to watch it, and I'm pleased that I did. It hasn't had the best reception, but as long as you don't take it too seriously, I think it's something that can be pretty good fun. This was released in 2013. It's directed by Jimmy Hayward, and it's not historically accurate, but the film is aware of that. The film makes it very clear that this is not an historical representation of just before the first Thanksgiving. It's about these turkeys who use a time machine to go back in time to just before the first Thanksgiving to try and convince them to not eat turkeys. And obviously this is because turkeys are most largely consumed at Thanksgiving, at least in the States, of course. And if they're able to convince them to not eat turkey at the first Thanksgiving, that may then save the fate of turkeys further down the line. It's a very creative concept. When I first realised what this was about, what my first thought was, that's not what I was expecting it to be about. So I don't know how they came up with this idea or who came up with this idea, but I'm very impressed with the creativity. I think had they tried to be historically accurate, it would have been a bit awkward, and I think it would have been a little bit too much. But because the film is very aware of the fact that it's not trying to be historically accurate, you can then watch it without taking it too seriously. And I think that that's definitely the best approach. If you're looking for something that offers an accurate depiction of that time period, then it might be a bit disappointing. But if you go into this expecting something maybe a little bit ridiculous, but with some really likeable protagonists, the main turkeys, Jake and Reggie, played by Harrelson and Wilson, are really delightful. I thought they were really likeable characters, and I really enjoyed following their journey. So the characters are great. The story is, as I said, it's creative. It's not the most exciting in terms of the actual action within the narrative, but I really like the time period. And even though it's not historically accurate, I did find that to be really interesting to watch. But it isn't the most gripping or compelling narrative. There were times when my attention was maybe wandering a little bit, but not to the point where I ever felt bored. The animation itself is pretty great. I have no complaints about the animation. It doesn't exactly pop or anything. The colour palette isn't the most satisfying, but the colours make sense within the context of the animation and then the narrative and the characters. If they were having bright pastel coloured turkeys, that might be a little bit too unrealistic. So not really a problem, but in terms of what I look for in animation, it's maybe not as eye-catching as I would have liked, but it is still good. It's still a decent animation. So I don't actually have any complaints. It may not be the most amazing film I've ever seen. It did kind of ebb and flow with how engaged I was throughout it, but it's a fun concept, well executed, likeable characters, great voice cast, and decent animation. If you're looking for something a little bit different and you haven't seen Freebirds, then I'd say it's one that's worth watching.